I still remember the exact words. Your father has made his decision. Don't expect him at the wedding. Even now, years later, those words echo in my chest like a bruise that never fully healed. On mornings like this, when sunlight spills across the hardwood floors of my Manhattan apartment and the city hums awake below, I almost convince myself that chapter of my life doesn't matter anymore. My career is thriving, my calendar full, my silk blouse smooth against my skin as I sip coffee from a porcelain cup I once thought I'd never be able to afford. On the outside, I look like a woman who has it all together. But then my phone buzzes. A name flashes across the screen, one I haven't spoken aloud in months. My sister, Caroline. The one who hated me enough to make my father choose sides. My hand trembles, just slightly, as I hold the phone. I don't answer right away. Instead, I stare at my reflection in the window, my makeup flawless, my eyes sharper than they used to be. People think success erases old wounds, but the truth is, it only hides them under better lighting. And now, with this single call, the past I buried so carefully threatens to rise again. Back then, I wasn't the woman sipping coffee in a Manhattan high-rise. I was just a 23-year-old girl from suburban Ohio, standing in the living room of my parents' house, my voice breaking as I tried to defend myself. Caroline sat on the couch, arms folded, lips curled in that smirk she reserved only for me. My father stood between us, his jaw tight, as though he'd already made up his mind. Dad, all I'm asking is for you to be there for me, I whispered, my throat thick. To walk me down the aisle. I'm your daughter. Caroline's voice cut through mine, sharp and cruel. She's only marrying him to get away from us. Don't you see? She doesn't care about this family. She never has. My chest ached. I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks, my hands trembling as I tried to steady myself. I looked at my father, searching his face for even a flicker of the man who once carried me on his shoulders, who told me bedtime stories, who promised me I'd always be his little girl. But all he said was, Caroline has a point. It felt like the floor opened beneath me. My mother looked away, silent as ever, while Caroline's eyes glittered with satisfaction. That night, when I finally collapsed in my childhood bedroom, I found a small velvet box tucked inside my drawer. It wasn't from my parents. It was from my grandmother, my mother's mother, who had passed away the year before. Inside was her old silver locket, delicate but sturdy, with a tiny engraving on the back. Strength is quiet. I pressed it to my chest, the cool metal calming my shaky breaths. That was the moment I knew, if my family wouldn't stand beside me, I'd have to stand alone. The very next morning, I packed a suitcase. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just slipped the locket around my neck, walked out the door, and promised myself that one day, I'd never need anyone to choose me again. The first days in New York were brutal. I rented a tiny studio apartment in Queens, the kind where you could touch the stove while lying in bed. The paint was peeling, the radiator hissed all night, and the ceiling leaked whenever it rained. But it was mine. And more importantly, it was not theirs. I took whatever jobs I could find. Waitressing, handing out flyers on street corners, answering phones in a cramped office. At night, I'd come home, peel off my shoes, and sit cross-legged on the creaky floor with my grandmother's locket resting against my collarbone. I'd whisper, "Strength is quiet," and try to believe it. My break came in the unlikeliest way. I was working as a receptionist at a small design firm downtown when one of the junior associates quit unexpectedly. The owner, a sharp-eyed woman named Evelyn Harper, looked me up and down and asked, "Can you sketch?" I hesitated, but handed her my notebook, the one I filled with doodles and design ideas when the phones weren't ringing. She studied the pages in silence, then finally said, "Stay late tonight. Let's see what you can really do." That was the night everything shifted. Evelyn became my first mentor, the kind who didn't hand out compliments, but demanded excellence. She tore apart my first drafts, made me cry more than once, but she also pushed me further than I ever thought I could go. The years that followed were a blur of exhaustion and exhilaration. I studied design software until dawn, pitched small freelance projects to anyone who would listen, and learned the rhythm of a city that rewarded the relentless. My first real win was a coffee shop logo. The owner paid me only $200, but when I walked past that cafe and saw my design shining above the door, I felt 10 feet tall. One client led to another. Soon I was freelancing under the radar, building a portfolio, and saving every penny. My social media stayed understated. Just the occasional photo of me with friends, a simple, working hard caption, never enough detail for my family to suspect how much I was growing. The locket never left my neck. Whenever doubt crept in, when a client ghosted me, or rent was due and the numbers didn't add up, I'd grip it in my palm and hear my grandmother's voice in my memory. Strength is quiet. By my late 20s, quiet strength had turned into something undeniable. I launched my own design firm, small at first, just me and a rented office barely bigger than a closet. But then came my first major client, then another. Within a few years, the business grew faster than I could have dreamed. And through it all, my family knew nothing. To them, I was still the daughter who walked away with a suitcase and too much pride. I let them believe that, because one day, when the time was right, I wanted the truth to hit them harder than any argument ever could. The confrontation didn't happen the way I imagined. I always thought if my family came back into my life, it would be through a tearful apology, or maybe a dramatic knock on my door in the middle of the night. Instead, it started with a wedding. Caroline's wedding. I hadn't planned on going. But when the invitation arrived, in Boston gold, with my name spelled correctly for the first time in years, I felt a strange pull. Curiosity, maybe. Or maybe it was the universe telling me the stage was finally set. So I went. Not alone. My driver pulled up to the Grand Hotel where the reception was being held. I stepped out in a gown that fit me like armor, my heels clicking against the marble floor as if announcing, "She's not the same girl who left." The whispers started almost immediately. Relatives I hadn't seen in years blinked at me, mouths parted. Some smiled hesitantly. Others looked me up and down with a mixture of shock and something dangerously close to envy. When I finally saw my father, he froze. His hair had thinned, his shoulders slouched, but his eyes were unmistakable, confused, searching, and guilty all at once. Caroline stood beside him, radiant in her lace gown, her hand possessively on his arm. "Emily?" my father said, like my name itself was foreign. I smiled softly. "Hi, Dad." Caroline's eyes narrowed. "You came?" "I did," I answered smoothly, glancing around the glittering ballroom. Beautiful place. Must have cost a fortune. The tension was thick enough to cut. And then, as if fate had orchestrated it, one of Caroline's friends asked me the question that changed everything. "So, Emily, what do you do these days?" I could have given my usual polite deflection. But not tonight. Not here. Instead, I straightened my spine and let the words flow with quiet power. "I own Harper & Company. Design," I said. "We're headquartered in Manhattan. Our firm handles corporate branding for Fortune 500 companies. Last year, we cleared just over $40 million in revenue." The silence was electric. I could feel the air shift as relatives turned to one another, whispering. My father's mouth opened, then closed. Caroline's face drained of color. "You what?" she finally stammered. I gestured toward the pendant at my neck. It started with one small logo. I built it from there. Long nights, a lot of rejection. But it's mine. All of it. I let the words hang in the air. Around us, the ballroom seemed smaller, the chandeliers dimmer compared to the weight of the truth. For years, they had pictured me as the lost daughter, the runaway. And now, standing in front of them, I was something else entirely. My father's voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Emily, why didn't you tell us?" I tilted my head, a calm smile on my lips. "Because you never asked." And just like that, the balance of power shifted. After my reveal, the air was heavy with silence. People tried to return to their champagne flutes and polite chatter, but the energy in the ballroom had shifted. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was undeniable. Caroline was the first to speak, her voice sharp but trembling. "So, what, You want us to clap for you? You left, Emily. You abandoned us. I met her eyes steadily.
No.
I saved myself. There's a difference. My father flinched. His hands shook as he set down his glass. Emily, please don't talk like that. We're still family. I inhaled slowly, letting my grandmother's locket rest against my heartbeat. Family isn't about blood. It's about how you show up for each other. And the truth is, you didn't show up for me when I needed you most. He looked as though the weight of those words pressed against his chest. I softened my voice, but not my resolve. But I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to lay out terms. If you want to be in my life again, things have to change. Caroline rolled her eyes. Oh, please. I cut her off, calm and clear. Caroline, if you want a relationship with me, drop the jealousy. Stop competing with me like my existence is some kind of threat. Pursue something that's yours, not something meant to tear me down. Until you do that, I won't let you close again. Her face flushed crimson. For once, she didn't have a comeback. I turned to my father. Dad, I love you. But you chose sides when you didn't have to. If you want to stand beside me now, I need honesty. No more silence when Caroline attacks me. No more dismissing my pain because it's easier than confronting it. If you want to be part of my future, you have to own the past. His eyes watered, his lips trembling. For a moment, he looked small, fragile even. And Mom, I said, glancing at her where she sat at a nearby table, avoiding my gaze. I need more than silence from you. I need your voice. If you want me in your life, use it. Speak up. Don't let history repeat itself in silence. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't angry. My tone was steady, measured, filled with a kind of grace I didn't have when I was younger. That's what made every word hit harder. I looked at them all, my father, my mother, Caroline, and finished simply. Those are my conditions. I won't lower them. I won't beg. I don't need to. But if you want a place in my life, that's the only way forward. For the first time, they were the ones left trembling, not me. In the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. Slowly, almost awkwardly, the people I thought would never change began to shift. Caroline called me first. Her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. She admitted she'd always felt like I cast a shadow she couldn't escape, and instead of finding her own light, she tried to dim mine. For the first time, I didn't hear venom in her tone, only exhaustion. She told me she was considering going back to school for interior design, something she'd always loved but never dared to pursue. I told her honestly, if you do it for yourself, not to outshine me, I'll support you. My father visited me next. He came to my office, not the other way around. He stood in the doorway, staring at the artwork on the walls, the sleek glass table, the awards lining the shelf. His eyes landed on me, and he said only one thing. I should have walked you down that aisle. I see that now. There were tears in his eyes when he asked if he could walk beside me now, in whatever way I'd allow. And my mother, quiet, timid mom, sent me a letter. Pages and pages in her neat handwriting, finally using the voice I begged her to find. She wrote about her regrets, her fear of conflict, her pride in the woman I'd become. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the outsider in my own family. I felt like the compass. One evening, sitting by my window overlooking the city, I held my grandmother's locket in my palm. The metal was warm for my skin, the engraving still clear. Strength is quiet. She was right. My strength hadn't come from screaming or proving myself with bitterness. It came from surviving, from building, from becoming a woman who didn't need anyone's permission to shine. And maybe that was the greatest gift of all. I slipped the locket back around my neck, took a deep breath, and whispered into the night. I am no longer the girl you refused to walk down the aisle. I am the woman who walks on her own.